Welcome back to Royals Weekly. I am your host, Marcus Mead, and joining me as always, the Chinese say 2026 is the year of the horse, but he says it's the year of the middle-aged balding white guy. My brother Mike.
About time we got one. About time we got one. Huh? You know?
Yeah, it's the year of you.
Actually, what am I talking about? We had a whole year where people where they celebrated us just because we were like, I have a daughter. Got a whole year from that.
Yeah, I got a whole year from that. Not to mention the 5,000, 10,000 years that have been.
Well, we also got like a year from having just out of shape guts. Like, dad bods are in. Okay, cool.
There you go. Yeah. Yes. More of that, please. No.
We're doing just fine.
Mike's going to have a fantastic 2026.
That's right.
Hopefully you all do as well. On this week's episode, we're coming back. I'm saying this week, but we haven't been here for like a month. We're about to one more month and we'll probably get back into regular episodes. But on this week's episode, we're going to discuss where the Royals are in their offseason roster churn as they sort of try and improve the roster. We're going to provide a sense of what we're excited to see in exactly 1 month and 2 days, which is when the first spring training game starts. And then we're going to pick a few players who might surprise you in 2026. Every season needs breakout players. We'll talk about who those breakout players might be and who might surprise you in other ways. But to make sure you're getting all of our content, every last ounce of it, go ahead and subscribe to that Royals Weekly Substack. It's $5 a month. royalsweekly.substack.com, and for that $5 a month you get a bunch of extra content, including what I put out today, which is like a deep dive into Jac Caglianone and what he needs to do to improve from last year, the issues that he had last year and all that. It's really interesting. I highly recommend reading it for those of you who are interested in it, because I found something doing the research that was very compelling, and so I'd like you all to see that. $5 a month, royalsweekly.substack.com. Get all that extra content. It would be wonderful. Also, if you can't do that, make sure to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all the different places. We love to read those reviews right here on the show. Mike, what household chores do you refuse to do yourself?
Let's see. That's easy. It's almost all of them, but the biggest ones are window cleaning, pressure washing, and most importantly, gutter cleaning.
And why is that?
I am increasingly convinced that my windows are trying to kill me.
You might need to see some sort of brain doctor about that sort of thing, but
it's like 5 degrees in my house right now.
If you're wise like Mike, reach out to the professionals at Window Wolf for all your window cleaning, gutter cleaning, and pressure washing needs. Window Wolf is a locally operated small business with all the professional know-how to keep your feet on the ground and your house or business shining bright. I've known the owner of Window Wolf for years, and I can tell you there's no one more reliable for high-quality service. Plus, Window Wolf is revolutionizing home maintenance with their new instant price calculator, which gives you a free quote without a home visit or entering all your personal information or anything like that. Window Wolf is making the process easy and the price affordable. And for a limited time, you can get a 50% off when you book using their instant pricing calculator. Just visit windowwolf.com. That's windowwolf.com and use the code Royals50, that's Royals50, no spaces, when using their instant price calculator, and you're going to save big bucks on quality service.
I need 50% off all things. Okay. I'm in dire situations. I've had to switch to generic dude wipes.
Generic.
Okay? Like one of the pores.
Who would? Be smart. Let the pack handle your pains with Window Wolf. For a while, MLB's offseason was held up by the top free agents who were just taking their time deciding between obscene amounts of money offered by the Dodgers and obscene amounts of money offered by the Mets. See, those were the two options. They've now made their decisions, and as a result, it looks like we're on the downslope of the offseason with spring training just a month away. Smaller free agents will continue to sign, but there are reports that the Royals' once promising trade windows may be closing a little bit. Ken Rosenthal recently reported it's not likely that the Royals will make a deal for Jarren Duran or Brennan Donovan. With every passing day, that gets less likely. So it looks like some of those promising trade scenarios might be passing us by. Mike, do you think the Royals are done for the offseason?
I think that they're done with the major moves. I put the likelihood of them trading for Duran or Donovan under 50% and probably under 30% at this point. The Red Sox signed Ranger Suarez, a lefty, to a big-time deal, over $130 million, and they traded for Sonny Gray. So their pitching needs are now basically non-existent anymore. The Cardinals don't look like they are trying to go, and that's who Brendan Donovan plays for those of you that don't know. They look like they're not even trying to go for a title this year. They're kind of a rebuilding new GM towards the end of last year, and I would say his name, but I can't pronounce it. It's like Chaim Bloom. I don't know his name, but he came in at the end of last year. I think this year's offseason just about getting people out to rebuild. They're not spending in this offseason. They're not bringing guys in. They got rid of Nolan Arenado. They got rid of Sonny Gray. And so I feel like both of those places aren't destinations that Chris Bubic would even be needed or wanted at this point. So I don't see a major move coming for them. I see possibly a smaller move for an infield bench guy still, if that's something that they want to do. I'm not sure that they really go into for any bullpen guys either, really, except for like, minor league deal guys. After they got Strom, and now they have, was it Mears and Lang, and they've really filled it up kind of.
And they're spending $11 million on Carlos Estevez as well, which
and Alec Marshall will be back too. So
maybe, we don't know.
Yeah, we don't know on that one, but theoretically, at some point this year, you would think Alec Marshall might be back. So I just don't. I don't see a big move coming, and be looking for maybe those smaller things. But no.
Yeah, I think they're done with the big stuff as well. I mean, heavily likely. Like if somebody gets hurt or something, then maybe teams start calling for Bubic again. But it's a tough trade to make right now. Bubic for like Gray Bubic for Donovan or Duran or anything like that, because teams have started to finalize their rosters as we get closer and closer, and more guys sign and more deals get done. Fewer teams need stuff. The Red Sox clearly don't need starting pitching anymore. The Cardinals just may not think that it's worth to invest in a 1-year player for this year. So yeah, maybe some small stuff gets done. Maybe a lefty in the bullpen, like a small thing, if they want to sign somebody for cheap. I'm not talking a $10 million lefty. I'm talking if one even is still out there. I'm talking a $2 to $4 million lefty. Maybe they do something like that. Maybe a veteran bench bat, like you said, infielder, could be an outfielder if they really want to get creative, if they really want to hedge against Jac Caglianone not progressing as much. There's a guy like Mike Tauchman still out there, just still grinding it out. Tauchman, I love you, bud. Good job out there. So he's just going to have a 370 on base as a right-handed hitter for somebody in the outfield. We'll see who. But the Royals could choose to do something that'd be pretty radical to carry so many outfielders. But we'll see on that front. Mike, if the Royals are done, what does that mean for the rest of the team, who is impacted by the fact that they may be deciding to hold pat until the start of the season?
Well, I think Jonathan India and Michael Massey are probably breathing a little easier right now. Two guys who possibly
probably calling the Mets and telling them how great Bret Baty is, and they're like, "Don't, you don't want to bring him in here. You don't want him here. I hear he has BO. You don't want him."
They should be doing all that because neither one of them really made a case to get much playing time for this year with their performances in 2025. So I think those are the two that probably are, they kind of feel a little easier in their spots. You go down the roster a little bit too. It probably helps Nick.
Loftin.
Thank you. It probably helps him as a guy who can play second base as well, and a corner outfield too. So those are probably the big ones, but I don't know that it really impacts a whole lot of guys in that lineup because, well, it does. Kyle Isbell too. Now knowing that you're probably still the primary guy in center, at least to start the year, is a big deal. Or at the very
least the strong slide of a platoon because they didn't bring somebody to replace him that way.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. You had to wonder, like, if they brought in Isaac Collins and they brought in Jarren Duran, are they both going to play at the same time? Like, they both probably got to play left. You don't really want Duran in center.
No.
And so, like, what are you doing there? So I think once we got Isaac Collins, that pretty much cemented the Jarren Duran thing. It's not going to happen. And I think the team probably sees what it is, and hopefully India or Massey can come out and prove that they actually belong there at second. And there's a pretty natural platoon split there that you can do. But like I said, you don't want to get the least amount of production at a second base this year, like you basically did all of last year.
Yeah, I think Massey and India are two beneficiaries of the fact that they didn't really target and push second base super heavily in the offseason, at least so far. I think obviously Bubic still being on the team is one of the people who's really impacted, right? Like he's still a Kansas City Royal, he still lives in Kansas City. But it also, I think people need to realize, put some pressure, more pressure on Jac Caglianone, that they're not going out to say like, we're going to make a huge push to get a platoon partner for Caglianone, right? They haven't really done that. Like
I mean,
Lane
Lane
Thomas
Thomas
could,
is.
well, Lane Thomas could be, but he could also be a platoon partner for Kyle Isbell. He could also just play the role of fourth outfielder who occasionally spells various guys, right? Like, I don't think it's set in stone that they brought somebody in to hit as the short side of a platoon with Jac Caglianone. And so I think if you imagine if they had like done that, or even done like, we went out and got a legit outfielder who's going to start for us in right field, signaling, hey, maybe you're not going to start in Major League Baseball, right? Like, they have sort of put a little bit more pressure on him, or maybe that's, you could look at it as confidence in him that he's going to progress by saying, hey, you're probably still going to get 75, 80, 90% of the plate appearances out in right field. Mike, how would you grade their offseason so far? If it were done today, how would you grade it?
I think it's a solid B. You know, I think they should have done something more at second base. I would not be trotting out Michael Massey and Jonathan India again this year. I would at least have looked for a bat to work more with. Maybe I give Massey a shot too, but I would have been looking for another bat to go with him instead of Jonathan India. I would have saved the money there. And then, of course, not getting Bubic traded could end up being a loss in value if, you know, he goes through the whole year or whatever and just walks in free agency. Or even if you trade him at the deadline, you're still probably lost value because now he's a half a year rental guy. So I would have expected to see both of those things done. So I downgrade him a little bit for that. But Isaac Collins, I mean, he's got a chance to be a steal of a player here. Got multiple years of control. You've got a guy who had a 122 weighted runs created plus last year, who switch hitter, plays a decent left field, can run a little bit on the base paths. Like, this guy's got a chance to be a very solid player for a long time, and you gave up Angel Zerpa for him? Like, come on, that's an
that
opportunity.
Trade alone is going to get you to a C.
That's a C plus right by itself.
Yeah,
and then I like the upside of Alex Lang. I really do. I think there's a chance that he could be. I'm going to mention him here in a little bit, but he could be a guy that we look back and say, man, that was a steal as well. Nick Mears, I think, gives you really good right-handed matchup possibilities there. And then I also like the fit of Lane Thomas with a bounce back opportunity. The fact that he can play center, maybe not great center, but he can play it. And then he can also play an above average right field and provide some power. And so I think they did some things to make the lineup deeper. They did some things to give it a little bit more pop, maybe, and a little bit more on base with Collins. And so I can't be disappointed in this offseason, especially if you compare it to what a lot of teams in the division did, which was very little.
Yeah. That makes sense. I'm going to go B plus just because I'm even a little more optimistic about all those things. I basically agree on you with sort of the description of what happened, but I think there are other things to consider here. Like, I agree they could have done better with second base, but Bubic, yeah, it's a risk to hang on to him. And I talk about this a little bit in today's post for paid Substack subscribers. There's a little bit of risk associated with keeping him on, and one of those risks is that he gets hurt. Right, like, let's say he gets hurt and is down for large chunks.
Which is not unheard of with that young man.
Not unheard of in his career, right? Not unheard of in his career. He gets hurt for significant chunks of the season or the entire season. Guess what? So the Royals get that draft pick compensation for him walking in free agency if they give him a qualifying offer and he turns it down. If he's hurt the whole year or for significant chunks of the year, are they going to offer him a 1-year contract for what's going to be about $25 million? That's tough to do for a guy who's just been injured the whole year. It has a long track record of injury. So if you're JJ Picollo, do you want to put yourself in that position, like, of doing that, like waiting? And so that's what I sort of talk about. You're right. Like, there is that additional risk of Bubic sticking around still and that sort of thing. But the deadline also is where teams get desperate, right? And we've seen consistently teams overpay at the deadline for a guy like Bubic. Now, they may do it in prospects and not in Major League Baseball players, but I think that risk is mitigated a little bit by the fact that there's a lot of value to be had at the deadline. Teams will overpay, and it's really inefficient to buy players at the deadline. So hopefully that means he comes for quite a bit. That gets me up to a B. I think that you listed all the great things that have taken place this offseason, and he gets all the way up there because really no egregious mistakes at all this offseason. Mike, if this is the team that's going into 2026, the team that's currently on the roster, how do you feel about that team? Can they compete? Can they contend? Are they going to the playoffs? Are they winning the World Series?
I'm confident in their ability to contend for the division. Okay, I just alluded to it with the last question. Outside of, the Tigers giving the qualifying offer to Gleyber Torres, which he accepted, they've got Tarek Skubal. I know there's the weird arbitration case with him, but he's going to be there as well. Outside of them, there's not a roster that really matches up to ours. I mean, Cleveland, seems to always be there, and Jose Ramirez is a fantastic player. And you never know you can always kind of feel like they're going to contend. But Minnesota blew up the team at the trade deadline last year. The White Sox are probably at least, they've got some good young players, but they're probably at least a year, 2 years probably away from being really, really contending in any way. And so, it's the Royals and the Tigers who should be kind of battling it out when it comes to starting pitching depth. I think at the top, their starting pitching is probably better with Mize and Skubal, but I think ours is deeper. And then I think maybe there's a chance our lineup is deeper now as well. I think that's a good possibility there. So, I like our chances to compete for the division, and that should be the goal. And once you get in the playoffs, if you've got Cole Reagans and Lugo's back, and you've got a bevy of other pitchers to pick from for those 3 or 4, whatever starting spots you need, you got a shot.
You definitely do. I agree 100%. 2026 AL Central champs, baby.
Here we go.
Warriors Weekly is brought to you by All In Physical Therapy, who are happy to announce that they now offer strength and conditioning programs for youth athletes who want to get an edge on the football field, basketball court, or baseball field.
You want to run with the big dogs? You better work like one. Saw that slogan on an And One t-shirt in 1997.
And of course, All In Physical Therapy still offers the best in recovery from total joint surgeries and sports injuries with offices in Blue Springs, Lee Summit, and Belton. They'll help you take care of your recently repaired hips, knees, shoulders, elbows, you name it.
Hips, knees, shoulders, elbows. You've named all the areas my doctor says are a, quote, grave concern.
That's a bad.
Except for the just good. Really concerning areas.
Yeah. Just all the rest of them. If you're interested in reaching the peak of your athletic performance or getting back to 100% from an injury, check out All In Physical Therapy at allin-pt.com. That's ALLIN-pt.com. Or give them a call at 816-427-5300. That's 816-427-5300. We're just a month out from the start of spring training, the first spring training game against the Texas Rangers, and that's got me pumped. Is anybody else super pumped for that? Just 1 month left?
I'm excited. Yeah, it's going to be great. Great to see all that crap down there in Surprise.
Yeah. There really isn't a case that the Royals have gotten any worse this offseason, so there's plenty for fans to dream on and be excited about for the 2026 team. For our Spotlight segment this week, we're going to identify a few things we're getting excited to see in spring training. Mike, kick us off. What's the number one thing you will have your eyeballs glued to during those spring training games?
Yeah, I went with the low-hanging fruit for this one. I went with Jac Caglianone and what he's choosing to swing at, okay? And when it's spring training and we don't get to see a lot of the games, it can be tough. We'll be reading reports. We'll see as many at-bats as we can. But I want to see at-bat to at-bat, what kind of pitches is he swinging at? Is there a noticeable improvement in his approach? Because Jac Caglianone can cough on a baseball and hit it out in Surprise, Arizona.
Yeah, okay? That's true.
He's going to hit some home runs in spring training. I don't really care about that if he's swinging at stuff on the edges and outside the zone. Okay. I want to see a more patient approach. I want to be very selective. I want to see that. I want to see him have success with it because I felt like last year you could almost see him working on that as the year was going, but it was actually taking away from his power. And when guys make big adjustments like that, especially approach adjustments at the major league level and all that sort of stuff on the fly, it can take away your timing so much that your power ends up going away. We didn't even see close to what Jac Caglianone can do power wise yesterday or last year during the year. I know there was injuries and things like that, but go back and watch some of his stuff from college. You're going to see the guy just absolutely, or even some of the minor league stuff, destroying baseballs. When he started to make those changes, it kind of zapped him of that. I want to see the approach be better for Jac Caglianone.
Would you believe that is exactly what I dug into for the Royals Weekly Substack post today?
Well, you can see how much I read the Substack posts. I need to do
this is what I'm telling you. This is telling all the listeners. Like, go out there, become a paid subscriber, royalsweekly.substack.com. I dug deep into why Jac Caglianone, it's not just about his approach, actually, right? Like, because when he started to change his approach when he came back from the IL, right? His approach did change a little bit, but it looked like he got more passive. It looked like he was zapping some of his power. Why was that, right? Like, he started to solve some of the approach issues, but let's say he does fix his approach. That's not the entirety of his issue, right? He still has a 50% ground ball rate. He still has all these other things that are sort of impacting his ability. And I dig into what those things are in this week's Substack post. So make sure you're looking out for that. I'm very curious about the Caglianone too, and of it. What does his approach look like? I think that's a big part of getting him right. And so it'll be wild to see, because I'm thinking now, like, what if he goes off and hits like 400, 750 slugging? Like, what if he really just crushes it in spring training? Like, what will that look like, and how excited will people be? That sort of thing.
Extremely.
Mike, there's a train coming towards
the worst part. Well, there is a train right by my house. The worst part will be, what if the opposite of that is true? What if he comes out and just falls on his face with a new approach and all that sort of stuff?
We're getting excited to see. I'm excited to see Nick Loftin impacting the baseball really hard. I hope he's been working this offseason on bat speed, right? Because I think it would be great to see him impacting the ball hard. And for some of the ballparks that are down in Surprise, they have StatCast data. And so we'll be able to, including Surprise, I think Surprise has it. And so we'll be able to see, how hard is Nick Loftin putting the ball in play? Is it any different from last year? Can we hope that he might be able to impact the ball a little harder and be a really serviceable bench bat for them, or even a right-handed platoon at second base or something like that, right? Like, if he can do that, if he can use his new good approach at the plate, get on base significantly, he has a lot of value to the team. Even as somebody who is 27, 28, 29 years old, utility guy, I'd rather those guys be 1 to 2 win players than dragging you down. And so I'm curious to see how Nick Loftin is hitting the ball. I'll be looking at that. Mike, what's your number 2 thing that you're getting excited for in Surprise?
Isaac Collins, man. I'm excited to see him play.
You can tell I let you go first today because you chose all the lowest ones. All the lowest fruit is directly in Mike's gullet.
That's right. Because I'm just curious to see him play, because I haven't seen him play that much. I don't watch Brewers games on the reg. So I'm excited to see the switch hitting approach. I'm excited to see really just his overall approach, because it's a more patient kind of hitting. He's got a pretty good walk rate. I'm just interested to see him as a player. The stuff I read about him is very much a kind of a hustling kind of guy that lays it all on the line and really plays hard and all. Real dirt bag, real dirt merchant. I don't know. The guy seems like a great baseball player. I've told a friend of mine who played college baseball, I said, the Royals just traded for a guy you are going to absolutely love, Isaac Collins, because he's going to do all of the things that are small little things that gain a team value in a lineup that makes a manager want to play him every single day. I think he's going to for sure do those things. Is he going to hit the home runs he did for the Brewers? Probably not, but I think he's going to add a lot of value to this lineup, and I'm excited to see what it does overall. Now, we're not going to see that too much in Surprise because all the mixing up of the lineups, but I just want to see him play.
Yeah, here's the thing about dudes who kind of languish in the minors for a number of years and played college baseball and that sort of stuff. They're all dirtbags. Like, they all, like, if you stuck it out until you were like 27, 28, and, you were drafted in the, I don't know, like it was like the 9th round or something like that. Like, yeah, you're a dirtbag. If you stuck, like, if you're just sticking around in minor league baseball, because you're not living off of bonus money, you're living off a minor league salary, right? Like,
you're living off per diem, which is not great.
You are a dirtbag. You love baseball. If you took the Isaac Collins route, if you took the, think of other guys for the Royals who take this, the Dairon Blanco route, guys who made their debuts very late and that sort of thing. We know those guys. So yeah, these are great to have. I'm excited to see him too. I'm going to pick Jac Caglianone again, but in a different way. See, I'm creative with it. I'm going to say I'm excited to see Jac Caglianone's defense in right field, right? Last year, you'll remember, it's hard to remember this, but like he didn't start in spring training playing right field. He didn't play any right field in spring training, really, I don't think. It was like midway through the year in the minors, he started transitioning to right field. Now he's going to have an entire spring training. We're going to get to see that quite a bit. He's had more time to train in the outfield. I'm curious to see what it looks like. He can't, we don't, it's fine if he's basically a total dud in right field as long as he hits really well. But I'd love for him to get somewhere close to major league average out there and it to be more graceful so he doesn't hurt himself and all those sorts of things. That's like an extra added dimension to him being good in right field. And I think he's got the athleticism for it. So I'm interested to see what it looks like.
You know, I think he does, and I was actually pleasantly surprised with what I saw out of him in right field. The thing that shocked me was that the arm wasn't better. You know, the guy's got an
It was.
absolute massively cannon arm,
Right.
but
But
he just
also,
didn't know
remember,
where it was going at all. And
right.
so,
He has a
yeah,
notoriously wild arm as a pitcher,
yeah.
too. And so, it's tough. He walked a lot of guys. Yeah, and so, a lot of arm strength. And if you look at his um, baseball savant page of the fielding section, it's one of the strongest arms in Major League Baseball in the outfield. But yeah, we'll see if he can rein it in a little bit in 2026. Mike, give me your number three thing that you're excited for that you're keeping your eyes on in spring training.
Yeah, I'm going to be looking, have any young regulars been working on stuff? So last year we got to see like Vinny come out and noticeably have a higher bat speed. And you could tell Michael Garcia noticeably trying to pull the ball more. I'm wondering, are any of those kind of regular young guys, Vinny again, Michael, Noah Cameron would be a big one. Other guys that were in Major League Baseball, Ryan Bergert will be one I'll be looking at intently. I want to be able to, okay, can I tell the one thing you were working on during this offseason and has it made a substantial impact on your game overall? For Michael Garcia and Vinny Pasquantino, I think it very much did. We know that Noah Cameron always works on stuff. Like every offseason, he comes back a different pitcher. And so he had a lot of success last year. What did he do to build on that? And so I'm really looking for those kind of singular things that that young core of guys was kind of working on. I'd even take a Michael Massey. Like, can I noticeably see Michael Massey swinging less? That would be fantastic.
That would be nice.
And so, yeah, I want to be able to pick out some of those things for those individual guys.
Yeah, that's great. I'm looking at Carter Jensen, another young guy, but not his offense, his defense. Go with two defensive ones here. Carter Jensen behind the plate. What does he look like in spring training? I'm very interested to see that. He was working on it a bunch this offseason, probably working on blocking the ball a bunch this offseason. And so what does that look like? We know he's got a good arm back there. We know that he's a really good framer of the baseball. But if he can improve that defense behind the plate, the Royals will feel more and more comfortable playing him more behind the plate. And that's sort of the transition we want to start to see in 2026 is that he starts taking more games behind the plate. Salvador Perez starts DHing more, maybe playing first some and that sort of thing. But really, Carter Jensen becomes the primary catcher for the Kansas City Royals moving forward. And in order to do that, his defense is going to be a big part of it. Royals Weekly is brought to you by Eric Oxford of West USA Realty. Do you have the same fantasy we do, retiring to a land of eternal summer? If so, you need to call Eric Oxford of West USA Realty pronto. He can help you transition to a lovely home in the Phoenix area and a life of fun in the sun.
Phoenix, where the streets are paved in gold or gold bond. Kind of depends on where you are.
Eric has repeatedly finished among the top 10 real estate agents in the Phoenix area this year because he gives all of his clients a personal experience focused entirely on their needs. With Eric Oxford of West USA Realty, it's not about him, it's about you. He's there to listen to you, work for you, and guide you through the ins and outs of buying and selling in the Phoenix area.
And make sure you end up on one of the gold streets. Gold plated, at least. At the very least, you're going to get gold plated.
Find Eric Oxford of West USA Realty online at ericoxer.com. That's ERICKAUXIER.com. Or just give him a call or shoot him a text at 480-383-9745. That's 480-383-9745. If you're at all interested in what a life in the Phoenix area might hold, let him make the experience all about you. Every season, some players come out of nowhere and surprise fans and commentators alike. Last year, Michael Garcia and Noah Cameron pleasantly surprised Royals fans with their excellent seasons. Michael Massey surprised in a different way, though, by showing us how deeply someone could sink offensively. Mike, using the crystal ball I know you keep in your wallet, give us some surprises for the 2026 season. Who do you think might surprise Royals fans during the next year?
Oh, do I have some good ones here? I had to mostly go to the pitching side for this because a lot of the hitting side is guys that I feel like are pretty settled, and I think we know what we're going to get out of them. I went with Alex Lang for the first one. The last time that Alex Lang was healthy in 2023, he had a 3.68 ERA and saved 26 games. Okay, he had a strikeout rate over 25%. The walk rate was also like really high, but he was 99th percentile whiff rate in 2023. And so the guy gets the swing and miss. He's got the walk issues, yes, but he can definitely get the swing and miss if he can stay healthy. So if he's healthy this year, and the one thing I think he needs to kind of work on, I think he's got to get back to a place where he can use his four-seam fastball effectively. It's become his worst pitch and the one that he uses the least. But I think if you can just make it somewhat usable again, it's not a velocity issue. It's a this thing's really straight issue. And I would like for him to see him be able to fold that into the mix to especially keep lefties off balance and things like that. So I think if he can improve the fastball just a tick, he's got a really, really good curveball. He leads with that. He does throw a two-seamer as well, but I really like I'd really like for him to just be able to throw in that fastball to keep guys off balance. And then I think you could see him being a guy that you're going to in big time strikeout situations at some point.
Yeah, I mean, you have to think the Royals, pitching regime saw something in his data that gets them to think, hey, we can work on that fastball. We can improve that fastball in some way. Or we can give him a different type of fastball, maybe that will help him more than his current one is. Mike, I'm going to give you a hugely surprising one based on the way we've talked up to this point. My big surprise for this year is going to be the Royals' second base rotation. Right? I think the second base rotation is actually going to surprise some Royals fans, right? Okay, remember this. Jonathan India is 1 year removed from a 109 weighted runs created plus season, right? 1 year. And last year, he was constantly changing positions, constantly having to lead off, hitting against everyone, righties and lefties, right? Michael Massey is 1 year removed from a 104 weighted runs created plus season, right? Now they both get to hit just against the pitchers they do the best against, right? And so they're put in the ideal situations. Hopefully Massey's made some changes to his approach. Hopefully India has found some ways to impact the ball, right? But these are the things that I think will surprise people as like if they both just get regression to their mean a little bit, they'll get some positive regression and they'll be maybe pleasantly surprising for a lot of people. And of course, we know Massey plays good defense at second. India, I think, can be average there if he just gets to stay there and not have to try and be an outfielder too. And so I think, honestly, that we might see a league average season from them as a rotation, and people will be pretty surprised by that, I think.
You're out of your damn mind.
All right, we'll see. Mike, what is your number 2 surprise for the 2026 season?
Oh, I'm going with Luwinder Avila. You know why?
Because he's good?
Because I know you wanted to. Oh. So I took it from you. I took it. All right. Luwinder Avila is such an interesting dude because the stuff is there. He's started in the past. He's done bullpen work in the past. To me, what that says is you've got an opportunity, Royals. You've got an opportunity to use this guy in an interesting role in a way that could help out not only your bullpen, but maybe your starters as well. I think Luwinder Avila is going to prove himself to be a weapon out of the bullpen in a variety of ways. Expected batting average against in this very limited time last year in the major leagues was 164, and he struck out over 28% of the batters he faced. He has got the opportunity to be a guy you can say, hey, we only want this starter to pitch 4 innings today. Avila, you've got 2 or 3, depending on how they go. Okay. Or, hey, Avila, we need to put out a fire. You're going in there now. He could be so many different things. Hey, we need a strikeout. Go get it. We need a ground ball,
he does
from
have
the
a
curveball.
high ground ball.
Like the guy can do that too. Like you just have so many different opportunities to utilize this guy in a bullpen. If the Royals can get creative enough to do it, he's going to be a valuable weapon.
Another guy like Lang, who, if he can improve his fastball a little bit, will really help sort of some of those outcomes, especially long term, as he thinks about, am I going to be a starter again someday, and that sort of thing. Yeah, yes, you're right. I could have taken him if you had not. And so, for my number 2 surprise, I'm actually going to go a little bit to the dark side. I'm talking about a potential bad surprise, and that's Seth Lugo. I think Seth Lugo might be a bad surprise for the Royals. They're paying him $23 million this year. Remember, he was injury plagued last year, and as a result, didn't have a good season statistically either. It's harder to bounce back from injury when you're 36, 37 years old. And now, we might, if you were 25, we might say, well, he'll just be back this year. It wasn't anything catastrophic. He never went under the knife or anything. But it's not so easy. I mean, remember, his velocity exists at a place that's like so low, any lower, and it starts to get real tough to be effective.
Exactly. And it's
right? Like,
super key to all his other stuff that it be 92 or
92,
above.
93. Yeah. He can't get down to the 90, 91 range, or he starts getting into the dangerous range, right? And guys are going to start hitting more powerful fly balls. And guess what the Royals just did? They just brought the fences in. And so I think that is another element that is actually, he is going to get hurt the most of anybody on the Royals, I think, from bringing the fences in, right? Because of all the things that I've sort of said. He has, an array of pitches, but there are a lot of times when guys seem to get under some fly balls, they go pretty deep on him, but he keeps him in the ballpark. We'll see if he can end up keeping him in the ballpark now that the fences are significantly closer. I think he might have a surprisingly rough year for Royals fans. All right, Mike, get us back into the positive here. What's our number 3 surprise from you?
I'm hoping this one was more of a hope. It's not like, I think this is going to happen, but I hope that Lane Thomas surprises me. He'll be healthy. If he can be healthy and put in a lot better situations than what he was been put in the past. After that year with the Nationals I think it was 2023, and he got a bigger free agent contract and that type of stuff. I think there was the expectation that he was going to be a guy who hit all the time and all that stuff. Now they're going to ask him to hit against lefties pretty much exclusively. He had an OPS over 900 in 2023 against lefties. It's over 800 in 2024 against lefties. He didn't hardly play at all last year because he was hurt most of the year. I think he can be a fantastic complementary piece to start the year, especially, and then maybe a little bit of insurance if Jack doesn't show the improvement that you want. At least you're going to put a guy in there who's a little bit more competent than what we saw from a Hunter Renfroe last year, or an MJ Melendez last year, or Drew Waters last year. I think Lane Thomas can at least give you something being healthy that you can hold on to until you can maybe find something a little bit better. Ideally, he's not going to play every day, but if Jack falls on his face, you wouldn't feel bad putting Lane Thomas out there for a while until you can maybe flip Bubic for a more regular everyday guy, right?
Yeah, that makes some sense. I'm going with a positive from a guy I talk about a lot and a guy I probably believe in more than anybody else, Nick Loftin. I think he's one of my surprise players here. I think I've been saying since the middle of last season, all he has to do to break out is hit the ball harder. He's had an off season to train bat speed and hit the ball harder. Let's see what he's got. I think he comes out with a little bit increase in his hard hit rates and things like that. Continues to integrate his really good approach that we saw in AAA last year. He's got the excellent chase rate, whiff rate, strikeout rate, square up rate, which means he hits the ball as hard as he possibly can a lot of the time. He just needs to swing harder so that he can hit it harder, right? Like it sounds wild. It sounds like a weird, like youth baseball dad's idea of what should improve somebody's hitting. You just hit it harder, but it is actually what he needs to do, right? And so, and obviously you have the great defensive value. He plays second, third, first, left, right. That helps, runs the base as well. I think he can be a utility and will be a really solid bench player for them if he hits the ball harder, and I think he will.
You want to hear a funny story?
Yeah.
I was playing baseball with my son this morning in the house, and he hit one right back at me, and he said, "I'm sorry, Dad, I won't swing so hard next time." I said, "Why the hell would you do that?" I said, "Swing it as hard as you possibly can." Come on, Nick Loftin, swing it as hard as you possibly can.
We'll end this week's episode like we end every episode with the Just a Bit Outside segment, where we talk about something that's interesting to us outside the world of baseball. It's been a long time since we did this, Mike. A lot of stuff has happened in the world, in your life, I'm sure, all that sort of thing. Tell us what you want to talk about for your Just a Bit Outside this week.
I want to talk about a video game.
Sounds awesome.
Sounds awesome. So as I just mentioned, I have a young son, and it's not easy to find video games for him to play or us to play together, really. We don't do a lot of video games, but he gets kind of on the weekend to play an hour of video games with dad every weekend. And we were looking for one, and we found a great one. So I wanted to put it out there. And this is not just for little kids. If you are a fan of the old school Zelda games, I'm talking like not necessarily the original one on NES, but the like the Super Nintendo one, which is very good. This is very much like that. It's very much in that vein. It's called Zelda Link Awakens. It is legit. It is a legit video game, especially for, kids. My son's almost 4 years old. If you've got a child that's like 5 in that area and you sit down and you play with them, in the video games, you can help them solve the puzzles, and you get to hear them working out things in their mind and all that sort of stuff. It's very much a thinking game. This is really a great one to pick. And we have it on the Switch. It was not cheap necessarily, but it is a fantastic video game. I've
Always
really
gouging
enjoyed.
the parents, aren't they?
Oh yeah, for sure. I've just really enjoyed playing it with him, and kind of taking me back to when I was a younger kid and we played Zelda pretty much every iteration you can think of. And it's just really well done in that it's a simple game, but it's really well done. I can't help explaining it any other way. I've really enjoyed it. We've played some other games for that work well for younger kids, or okay for younger kids, but this has to be the best one, and it's the one that he absolutely loves now. And so Zelda Link Awakens, you did good, Nintendo. You did good on that one.
It's weird that you see the main character of the video game you're playing have roughly the same name as you, which your son has the benefit of having.
And that's why he was named. That's why we named him what we did.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, that's great. I'm taking something a little more somber tomorrow. I mean, somber, but also inspirational and interesting. Tomorrow is Martin Luther King Day. Yeah, yay. We celebrate the life of one of America's greatest citizens, one of America's greatest activists, civil rights pioneer, Martin Luther King Jr., which is wonderful, right? That's great. What I want to sort of talk about related to that, though, is I sometimes do this, like when Martin Luther King Day comes up, I try and think about if he were still alive, or if he were a young man today, or if a Martin Luther King figure rose up in America, what would they be doing? What would they be saying? What would they be caring about? And all those sorts of things, right? And one of the things I've come to is that it's tough. It would be very, very tough for a Martin Luther King-like figure to arise today, right? In part because we're so divided, in part because our media is so divided. So you can sort of say something and it may only be heard by a tiny section of people and things like that. I think that's tough. But this year, when I'm thinking about Martin Luther King, what I'm thinking about is all the videos and things like that we see coming out of places in our very divided world today, like Minneapolis, like Chicago, like New Orleans and things like that, where ICE is doing raids, or where the National Guard is going, and all these sorts of things. And it seems very divided and it's very divisive. And so what I ask myself is, what side do I think MLK would be on? And I'd like you to sort of consider that in your own mind. Like when we see the video of, a guy in a mask shooting a priest with a rubber bullet, what side do you think MLK would be on? That seems like a pretty easy one, right? But these are the things that I've seen videos of in the last week. People pointing guns at citizens who are just trying to protest, people sort of holding people accountable, people being dragged out of their car windows that just got broken out and beaten and kneed in the face, and all these sorts of things by people in masks, by men in masks. And I think what we hold Dr. King up as this great American example, and so few of us actually live up to that in any sort of way, right? And so, I want to think about the people who are out there doing the work that Dr. King would do, doing the type of work that he did, standing up for people who are marginalized. I think that's what MLK Day should really be about. And I think that's what I'll spend tomorrow doing, is thinking about those sorts of things and hoping that you are as well. Because I think those are important questions to ask, not just a day that we don't have to go to work, which is also nice, right? Because, who wants to go to work? And it takes time to think about those things. But hopefully you can spend some time thinking about those on Martin Luther King Day. If it's just 5 minutes, it's just 5 minutes, but that's still a good time to do. Mike, any
Yeah, and
thoughts?
I'm just going to throw in here something that I'll remind our listeners, that I remind my students every year when we learn about Martin Luther King Jr. is, when he was rising in this country through the civil rights movement, he was not a popular figure in this country, and people who do the right thing and upset the apple cart when there is injustice often are not very popular when they're doing it, and so yeah, when you say it's not possible for a person like that to rise in this country today, I
It's
think it is
difficult.
extreme.
It's
Yeah, I think
difficult.
you're right. I think it's extremely difficult, and in large part because you're going to be facing the backlash of a large nation, large and powerful nation. But that doesn't mean it's not worth trying.
Yep. Thank you so much for joining us. We will be back again minimum in 1 month as spring training kicks off. We'll do like a season-long preview and all that sort of stuff, and we'll start back with our weekly programming at that point. But you can always catch us on the Royals Weekly Substack, royalsweekly.substack.com. We'll be coming out with an episode next week for that, every week for that, and of course more writing as well. Until then, be good to each other.
And go Royals.